there we go, that's the third livery, and it's certainly very green. And if you're confused as to what's going on with Sauber's identity, this is their alter ego. So say what you will regarding the ways that we have got to this position about why we have the likes of Filet Mignon F1 team. But in terms of their presentation, it was somewhat more slick than last year's. Alfa Romeo's 2023 presentation, I remember being a bit clumsy, and whoever was in charge of the video department showed the car earlier than was intended. And it was certainly far less stunted, it was less serious than this time around, and it was fairly well done. They picked a really nice location, the colours were good, and this is the second time I've seen a Finnish person with green sleeves, and the last time I saw that, they nearly won Eurovision. Cha! 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 But the presentation itself was actually not too shabby, even though the early rehearsal pictures made it look like they weren't really having a good time, but it wasn't overly corny. Sure, we've got the very punk-like aesthetics, as in, this ain't your grandpa's F1 team, said by Naomi Schiff, and when she said my name, quite surreal to have heard my name, but regardless, it was a lot better of a presentation than expected. And in terms of the car livery, we weren't really expecting too much. I kinda thought for their first livery that we would have just got the 2023 Alfa Romeo livery, but just green instead of red. But the green here, it's a lot of green, as I can tell right here, and it's certainly a bit busy. Like, I understand the green hue, it's actually quite impressive, it stands out a lot, and it's been a very long time since we've seen this shade of green in Formula 1. I think the last time I remember it being used in this similar capacity was one of the Minardis, I think it was 1995, where it was like lime green, white and black, and that was a really good livery, it's one of my favourites actually. And this is actually not that far off, but I don't know, it's just really busy. I don't quite get what the motif is. I mean, the nose of it is fine. It kind of reminds me of the Italian Grand Prix livery, where they had the green accents on the side and then the red on the top. It was so good, with the gold lettering of the number. It was so majestically beautiful. Really nice way to end their Italian Grand Prix colouring. But this time around, it just seems like it's a very busy affair. For example, what you get on the side pods and the airbox, it looks like a couple of sevens just bunched together to have one company logo on the airbox and then the same exact logo on the side pod. And you know that a company is struggling for major big sponsors when they have to use the same sponsor twice. And I suppose I'm alright with the fact that the Sauber name is now not lost. It does have pride of place on the nose, thankfully, with the K of kick, for example. But it just feels like it's a mishmash of multiple ideas that they wanted to have. I can't fault the presentation. It didn't linger on for too long. It's not as quick as the Williams one, where they were like, and coming up next, we're talking about the car. Psych! We're gonna show you the car now! And they get it, but 10 minutes isn't too bad. We got to hear from Valtteri, we heard from Zhou Guanyu, we heard from Alessandro Aluni Bravi. You see, I am starting to remember his name. And I can definitely tell he is flexing his marketing degree chops. He is loving the chance he can express himself in a different way. I'm happy for Alessandro. I feel like he's having a good time. Like he can experiment with this. They got 2 years, they can have fun with it. And I feel like this was a really good way in promoting the streaming service, because there was about like 60,000 people watching on that at the same time. But I imagine that probably as soon as the car was released, it probably dropped. But regardless, it went by quite smoothly. And again, the car, I don't know. The color combination of lime green and black, it is good. I like that combination, it's dangerous. And Sauber, to begin with, was mostly black. And then eventually, as they gained sponsored, when they got with Tissot, the Swiss watch manufacturer, they'd added some accents there. Then they had concept by Mercedes, and then eventually they got together with Red Bull and they started to develop the blue, green, and reddish car. But now, I just feel like it's too busy. On the side, you've got a green little wisp that Mercedes inspired, and now we've seen on the Haas. And I just feel like it's just going to be a trend, like this little bottom swoosh to denote curves and show the line of air where they want the aerodynamics to go, as if they are willing the air to go, please, just go under there, please, aerodynamics work. And it just feels like they're trying to come up with so many motifs at once that they really can't decide on one. Like, the front wing, for example, if you look here, the front wing is all green, and that's all well and good. It's lacking a lot of sponsors, I'll give it that. But I just feel like the implementation of the line of green, much like with the Haas, it's just really stunted. It just suddenly stops. What was wrong with just having the K of kick in lime green on the black, rather than it just suddenly halting underneath, you know, the casino company? It just feels like it's not quite right. Although I do like the idea of the number kind of overlapping the green outline. But again, at the top of the nose cone, it just suddenly stops. It's just a rectangle suddenly. And then again, you've got this whole thing on the rear wing where you just got black suddenly. It's meant to almost be an all green rear wing, and then suddenly it just goes black. Like, they have almost contractual obligations, and it's their own team. It just feels really bizarre. But it's not so bad from the front. It's just there's a couple of things which I feel are really off, where it just suddenly stops the green and then has to go into black, and therefore it just feels a little bit bunched up. The sponsors on the nose are bunched up as well. There's just this gap where it just feels a little bit disjointed, and it's just nowhere near as cohesive as the Alfa Romeo livery was of 2022 and 2023. And the 2023 one was one of my favorites because that shade of black, or sorry, carbon fiber and cherry red, the luscious cherry red at that, was beautiful. But this one, I'm not really sure about it. It's not really doing it for me, in the sense that I think it's the airbox and the side pod integration for me. That's the one that's really not doing it for me, because it just feels like, is it meant to be like some kind of lightning bolt or something, or like a swoosh thing? It just comes off as like two sevens put together. It doesn't quite do it for me. But again, the color used is not that bad at all, but it just feels like it suddenly just abruptly finishes. And yeah, I don't think they like what I had to say. There's a helicopter right there. But okay, one thing we can definitely say is that at least Sauber has pride of place on the nose cone. They haven't completely erased the idea of Sauber from existence, and they even acknowledged it in the presentation. So I will give it their dues, this whole thing. The presentation was more interesting than Alfa Romeo's presentation last year, where it was just a bunch of guys around a desk, and it was very, very formal, very, very serious. But as far as I could tell, I could not see Andreas Seidel there at all, and he's meant to be the CEO of the Sauber Group. I thought he would be there, but I guess they just got the team representative. I'm not really feeling it entirely, but the color combination is really good. I like it. It's striking. It's bold, much like what this team wants to do. But at the same time, it's a bit of a mess. So out of the three that I've seen so far, this is probably my least favorite. It's not god-awful, but it's certainly messy. Trying to do so many things at so many times that it's just come off as just this big amorphic green neon blob or something like that. I don't know. I'm not really feeling this. Let me know what you think down in the comments. And also, let me know in the comments what you thought about the Williams livery, which I think has certainly grown up. And finally, Williams have sponsors and a brand image.